Greetings to my fellow peace blunderers, and today I'm talking about what many people consider to be the single most important endgame there is, the Lucena Endgame. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are some other endgames that may as well be holding that title. It just depends on your level. For example, if you're more of a beginner, you just started playing out, this endgame is still a must-know and is still very important, don't get me wrong. It's just that you've got to start from more basic endgames, such as king and pawn endgames, etc, etc. By the way, I have covered king and pawn endgames before, go check them out. But then again, when you're a complete beginner, you want to focus, generally speaking, more on the middle games when you're only starting to figure out the mechanics, the pieces, etc, etc. There are just not that many endgames at the beginner level. That's all I'm saying. Usually games end through checkmate early on, or generally because someone blundered the queen and a lot of other pieces. But as soon as you start reaching those intermediate rating ranges, like breaking 1000, 1200, etc, etc, boy, is this endgame absolutely massive. And rightfully so, simply because this, as you can see on your screen, is a rook and pawn endgames, and as most of you guys probably know, rook endgames are by far the most common. Alright, so let's get into the endgame. What is the Lucena endgame about? It's characterized by one side having an extra pawn in the rook endgame, so it's rook and king versus rook and king and a pawn, and this extra pawn is situated on the 7th rank. If you were the black pieces with an extra pawn, the pawn would of course be on the 2nd rank. But what's annoying about this extra pawn is that right now it's being blocked by our own king. Right now it's tucked away on d8. And to finish the description of a typical Lucena endgame, I also must mention the black's pieces. The black's pieces are situated in a way that they are blocking our king from moving like literally anywhere. As we can see, the rook on c1 is controlling the c7 and the c8 square, and the king on f7 is controlling e7 and e8, so that the king, our king, is quite immobile. And finally, this pawn that we've got on the 7th rank has to be a non-rook pawn. As with most endgames, rook pawns will behave differently and abide by different rules. So in cases with the pawns on a7 and on h7, it's going to be a slightly different situation, which is not the subject of this video. I may consider making a video for that one if you so wish. Okay, so done with the description. Now what you need to know about this endgame is that it's completely winning for white, if you know the technique. And this is basically the reason why this video exists. Not everyone knows how to win here, and I'm showing you how to do that. Now, first of all, with white to move, you may be tempted to start checking the black's king with something like rook f2 check, which is understandable. You think like this: okay, so I may be able to get the king away from me with something like king g7 now, escaping that check, and I've got the squares vacated for my king, so I'm like, haha, I get to escape and promote my pawn with something like king to e7. Unfortunately, this is not the idea, simply because the black rook can now keep checking you into the oblivion. For example, rook e1 check, and what are you supposed to do? You're not really keen on coming back, are you? So you're gonna have to try and find another way out. So king d6 maybe? Rook d1 check, checking yet again. King is 6, alright. Rook e1 check, king d5, okay. So now you may be thinking, what if I simply walk forward with my king and then attack the rook at some point and then promote, right? Makes sense. But after rook d1 check, you realize that you can't actually move forward with your king, because if you go something like king c4 or king e4, going aggressive towards the rook, you're just going to lose the pawn, right? So king e4, bang, and this is a draw. And when you realize that this plan is simply not functional, you're like, okay. So king c6 back, and defending the pawn at the same time, and black just keeps checking. Black is totally cool with that. Rook c1 check, king d6, and this is going to continue up until a point where you finally decide that this is nonsensical, you're not making any progress, and you decide to go back in front of the pawn. And of course, this is where I have to mention as well that if you start checking black's king, again, you're not going to achieve anything at all, because after something like rook g2 check yet again, the black king just comes back to f7, and we have basically come back to the starting position pretty much, except that the rook is now on g2 where it used to be on e2. Not that big of a difference. And another check on f2, not going to change anything, king g7, and we're repeating. So it looks like the most straightforward solutions, the most direct solutions don't seem to do anything for us, so what are we supposed to do? The winning technique, let's come back to the starting position, please. There it is. The winning technique is called building a bridge, and this is something that I advise you to memorize. As soon as you memorize this idea of building a bridge, the process of bringing this idea into life is going to be quite easy. And what is that bridge? Well, if we come back to this idea where we checked the king away to liberate some squares and then try to come out with our king, and that was when black pieces started checking us, la 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 la, and then we came back. This idea, again, doesn't work, but it has already half of the solution in it. Remember that one way or another, our king does need to leave that queening square. It's just that the problem was that we could never escape those dreaded checks that just kept coming and coming and coming, and there was nowhere to hide, and there was nothing to block with. But as it turns out, if we play correctly, then we actually can hide behind something. It's not going to be the pawn, because we are hiding behind a pawn right now. It's not really working for us. We are going to hide behind our rook. We are going to build a bridge between our king and our rook and put them next to each other, connected, so that the rook is blocking our king from checks, and our king is in turn protecting our rook. So how is it done? Let's find out. We do need to start with the same rook f2 check. After all, we do need to liberate some squares, and the opponent king will go probably to g7. It doesn't really matter, trust me, which three of these squares the black king is going to retreat to is going to be the same. But if the black king, just on a side note, decides to retreat to e6, it's not going to be good for them. This is going to be an instant win for us, a very easy one at that, because we can now go king e8, and this pawn is unstoppable. The technique of checking our king is not going to work, because the own king is blocking the black pieces from checks, and rook c8 check is also impossible, because we're just taking the rook and queening. So after rook f2 check, king goes to g7, and this is where the most important move of the sequence is coming. We're starting to build a bridge. We want to bridge the gap between our king and our rook, and we're doing so with a rook lift. We are doing so by rook f4. We're bringing it to the 4th rank. And now, when we've got our rook a little bit closer to our king, is when our idea of walking the king out is going to work. Because, okay, let's give black some kind of move. Black cannot really achieve any progress in this endgame. The black rook probably still wants to stay on the c file, so let's play rook c2, and let's start walking out with king to e7. And this is where you may ask, isn't it the same position that we had before? Black just keeps checking. And yeah, for a while it's going to be quite similar. Rook e2 check, king d6, rook e2 check, king e6, rook e2 check, king d5, and after rook d2 check, remember in the previous position I said we cannot really move any more forward with the king to e4 or to c4, because that pawn is just going to get captured because it's not protected anymore. So in that position, we were forced to retreat back to c6 with our king and eventually hide behind that pawn. Now, with the rook on the 4th rank, we can finish the completion of our bridge with rook d4, blocking the check. And this is game over. Like, there is literally nothing that can happen now that will stop this pawn from promoting and us from winning. This rook is under attack, and the king is obviously nowhere near enough to stop the pawn from promoting. With black to move, what are you supposed to do, really? If you try to save your rook, well, we're just going to promote. Voila, and it's going to be an easy win. If we capture, the white rook would check, and king takes back. Again, the black king is not close enough. It tries going to f7, but we are, again, queening and winning. And of course, giving your rook away for black doesn't really help either. King f7, we're going to take the rook, and then even if king e7, we can simply go king c6, and, black king can try and block us from promotion for some time, but after rook to h2, what really is there to do? The only legal move for black is go with the king to e7, king c7, we are promoting. So yeah, take a mental photograph of this image in your mind and keep it there. This is going to be very important. We have basically put every of our pieces on the same file, and this is what building a bridge is. It's basically bridging the gap between our king, which used to be on d8, mind you, and our rook, which used to be on f2, pretty far away from each other, and we have managed to put them together. So they are doing a good teamwork. The king is protecting the rook, and the rook is blocking all the checks directed at the king. Now, of course, there will be different variations of this endgame because black pieces will play differently. Different people will have different moves, but it's going to be the same either way. For example, okay, we were going to start with rook f2 check, and let's say king g6. Now, remember I told you it doesn't really matter where the black king goes, but let's put it on g6, for example. We're still going to proceed with the same idea of rook f4. And let's say, okay, they decided to be a bit aggro, so king g5 attacking that rook. Well, this already is an instant blow because we can now go rook d4, and the pawn is going to be always protected by the rook now, so the king can be liberated from that position, and the king has still got a lot of room to go to. And if the black king tries to block some of these squares, he cannot block all of them. King e8, and again, we are easily promoting and winning. Any checks with the rook, well, we can just hide behind the black king yet again, and there is nothing to stop us with. Or, again, if we play the usual rook f2 check, let's retreat again to g7, our initial retreat, and then play rook f4. I mean, there are many moves that black can play here. We looked at the original position, which was a rook c2, but, no matter what black plays, it's still going to be the same. Let's play a rook e1, for instance. Okay, black is trying to cut off this escape route, but of course, with that, they are unblocking this side. So we can now easily go king c7, and it's going to be the same shebang. A rook c1 check, king d6, a rook d1 check, king e6, rook e1 check, king d5, and you can see where this is going. Rook d1 check, the same bridge happens. So yeah, at the end of the day, the outcome of this position is always going to be the same. Just remember the starting setup for it. It is always winning. For the side with the extra pawn, we're just going to build a bridge, and we're going to connect our king and rook to block every possible check, and then safely promote and queen and win, voila. And if you just so happen to find this video useful, please like and subscribe, follow me on Twitch, I stream Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays, find me on chess.com, join our Discord, all that good stuff, and I'm going to talk to you very soon, my favorite unintentional gambiters. Love you all, see ya in the next one.